Krieger-Watkins here with another edition of The Scoop for Mason County Press, brought to you by Betten Baker Ford and West Shore Bank. And today I'm joined with State Senator Curt Vanderwall. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, Kate. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. So we're going to talk about the coronavirus, what everybody is literally talking about. So I know tons of people have questions. They see tons of different media outlets talking one way or another, politicians saying one thing, somebody from the same party saying another thing, vice versa. What can you tell us, especially with Governor Whitmer the other day, I guess last night, canceling school starting Monday until the end of that spring break?
Well, I guess we'll chat and we'll kind of go through what we've seen and what's happening. I mean, in 2 months we've seen the virus from China now make it to the shores of the United States. 12 confirmed cases in the state of Michigan as of last night. It is a serious issue, but we also need to make sure that we don't overhype it.
Sure.
And what we have a tendency to sometimes do is that all we want to do is focus on the virus, and we don't want to focus on what we can do to make sure that we protect ourselves. And so the first thing I want to make sure is people understand is that proper hygiene is the number one way to stop the transfer of this virus. And that's if you use hand sanitizer in between scrubbing your hands, but when you wash your hands, 20 seconds. I don't think any of us ever really think 20 seconds. We stick them in there, we wash them, they're done, we dry them off, but 20 seconds. The other piece is be careful not to touch your eye or rub your eye when you have hands that are not clean. That's one of the easiest areas. Most of us think wearing a mask is going to protect us from the virus. It's actually not. It's your eye contact, because it's the number one place to go. If your health is a little bit subject and compromised and you're a little bit older, I would suggest that for a time being you are careful in how large a crowd you participate in. So that's going to a fish fry, or if it's going to the restaurant, or if it's going to a church service, be careful and just use common sense and proper judgment. Some of the things that we're doing down legislatively in Lansing right now is we put $10 million into a pot that we can use immediately for test kits, making sure those that are underserved can, if they're feeling that they have potential, they can be tested at no cost. We have $15 million more kind of in a lockbox, this per se, as if all of a sudden we've exhausted that 10, we can go get it, which also gets us $50 million from the federal government. So that we are putting a lot of money into that, to the virus, making sure that we find a cure, testing it. But the biggest part, if you're feeling sick, call your doctor. Don't just walk into the emergency room. Right. And I think that's the first thing people want to do, is walk into an emergency room. And now if you did potentially have it, you just contaminated all those.
Or if you didn't, somebody in there could have.
Correct. And
vice versa,
if your health is already compromised, we don't need it to be worse. And we do know that it affects elderly more than it does the young. And that kind of goes back to what you said on the school closing. We had anticipated a little of this, that potentially that could come. We were a little surprised last night at 11 o'clock when we got that phone call that the governor has mandated that all schools close on Monday for 3 weeks. We're working the details out on that and what we've got to do, because we got superintendents that don't understand in some of our statement, and we're trying to get clarification on that. We want to make sure that we are allowing those schools to stay open if they need to do lunches for underserved areas, daycare. So we are working on some of those details, so people are going to need to stay tuned for that. But it's pay attention, don't get overworked up about it, but understand the severity of it, and make sure that we still got to continue to live our lives.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people do kind of jump on the bandwagon of being panicked, and this is more of a precautionary, because they don't really know what this looks like long term, how to help with it, whether you get a vaccination and it's cured, or like the flu shot, you can get that, or at least take Tamiflu to kind of deaden the major blow. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, they're canceling things too quick, but you have to look at the back end of kind of like, we need to stop people doing these things, because if we don't, what's going to happen at our hospitals? Like, how overwhelmed are these people going to be? Because we don't have all the answers because it's so new. So what do you say about people who are just saying like, oh, basically this isn't a pandemic. I was going to say epidemic, but I guess it's pandemic now. And they're just kind of, flying to places, taking their spring breaks, going to all these like very large areas. Do you think it's smart? Do you think or is it basically to each their own, what they want to be exposed to?
I think that's part of the great opportunity we have living in the United States. We're free to make a lot of our own decisions, and that's where I say let's use common sense.
Right.
Now, hey, who hasn't thought about an opportunity to fly to Florida for $49 each way? But, Disney World closed, so that's down. Disneyland is closed. But again, it comes down to this. If you're in great health and you're taking care of yourself, in most cases, you're probably going to be okay. But when you get into some of these situations, you don't know what somebody else is, and that could potentially spread the virus. And so, again, common sense rules. I say be careful. Look at what you're doing, because we want to make sure that we don't spread it. We don't want to don't want to make more people infected. But look at where we are in the United States compared to our neighboring Europe or China. We closed the borders down very early in flights from the infected area, and it took quite a while. Mm-hmm. However, when you're locked in a cruise ship or an airplane, we all hear the young person with a cold, and we say, well, we'll have that next week. So again, common sense plays.
Right. I mean, no matter what, it's coronavirus or the flu or a cold, they all kind of work out in the same way. So I want to thank you for joining us. And like he said, keep informed, stay in tune, because there's so much that's changing so rapidly. Especially, I know a lot of people are very worried about with the school thing, so many kids that eat breakfast and lunch at school, but I know that they're trying to work out those kinks, like you said, the daycare, the latchkey kind of programs, because those adults don't necessarily have care for their kids, and they still have to go to work. So it is something that you want to keep track of, stay on top of. And again, I want to thank you again for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank
right.
you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
I hope you don't have the coronavirus, because we'd be sharing.
We already did. It's too late. If you got it, you got it from me. I don't know.
Throw a little humor into there. For any other news, check out MasonCountyPress.com, and our weather is always brought to you by Smith & Eddy Insurance. And remember, keep updated and informed about the coronavirus.